So we're continuing with our series on truth, possibly on this idea that there's a truth revolution, which is just a way of talking about it, not an absolute truth. It came in through my meditation a short while ago. So the wondering like, oh, are we in the middle of a truth revolution? Might this be something similar to the Industrial Revolution? And then I, thought about it some more and I thought, maybe like it is in the sense of our real common or shared understandings of truth have shifted so much, and we're in a new cultural paradigm. And as we spoke about Sunday, for those of you who were here, we don't believe that there's a one truth, a truth with a capital T that we're searching for in this time or any time. And we're very aware of and supportive of the fact that we really have different subjective truths. But there's no absolute objective truth that we can find. But still, something feels different from how it used to be. Something about truth is really different, and this difference is disconcerting. And as most other things, it's a mixed bag. And we could bring up many examples. The most current one that's going on in the news is, are vaccines helpful or harmful? There used to be a truth for my entire life that I can recall anyway, that vaccines were helpful. So that truth is all shook up, let's say. So, technology, because this is all on technology. Probably in my childhood, it would have looked very different if it hit the newspaper, whatever, social media, and make it all harder. On one hand, it makes it harder to hide certain truths. Things are revealed about governments, corporations, personal lives. At the same time, misinformation is traveling very quickly, and there's a real flood of information and misinformation, and that leads to these kind of, conspiracy theories that are very popular these days. And the line between truth and falsehood has gotten even more blurred. So this idea of a truth revolution that we conjectured is really kind of a struggle. What is the truth? What counts as truth? Now, like turning inward, I only have impact over what I regard as truthful. I mean, people can try to dictate it. People can put up a very strong fight or argument, but in the end, I get to decide what I believe. And then I kind of shifted to, the position I'm in right now with you, which is the power of, as your Dharma teacher for the hour. And one thing Dharma teachers could do from a position of power, anyone could do, is try to influence you and dictate your truths. But this clearly goes against my ethics. I will not do that. And if I do start to do that, you just better tell me, because I need a check on that. Because we all want to have the truth. It's a very it's much more steadying if we know what's really going on and we have the absolute truth, and we feel perhaps more steady, more grounded. But that's not my job here. My job here is to be curious about what truths you hold, and not to encourage you to abandon them, but maybe nudge you to hold it not as absolute truth, but rather lightly and with curiosity. And the way I nudge you is by asking questions that are lighter and more curious. So then there's another angle on this, which is being truthful with ourselves. That's a big deal. Maybe that's what we get to do when we settle down in meditation some more. We're still and we're with ourselves. Hopefully, it starts to lean towards being more truthful with ourselves. And then hopefully that leads to being more truthful in our relationships. Perhaps we could say cultivating a capacity to be a more truthful person. not a static thing, a truthful person, but it's a capacity. Now, taking this from a little different angle, we could say there's another kind of cultural revolution that's happened in my lifetime, it seems, where authenticity and subjective truths are valued. And that's certainly about things we value in reflective meditation. We not only value them, but we encourage them and support them. And of course, when we do this, as hopefully you all know, because it seems like you've been around for a while, we balance it with honoring your boundaries, and we have respect for what you hold as private. But there's an edge there. It's private, so I don't want to speak about it. There's an edge between that and being deceitful, putting on a front. So we're not the only teachers. Many Dharma teachers share this value and see it written in the suttas. And hopefully this self-honesty is a quality that we are developing through our practice. So here's a quote from Stephen Batchelor. He's one of the teachers we're closely aligned with on this topic. This is from an interview. Truth is a virtue. To live a life truthfully, and that to a large extent has to do with being honest with oneself. And honesty and a directness in one's discourse with others, a seeking of a kind of authenticity of one's life. To not live in contradiction with one's own thinking. To harbor contradictory ideas, and at the same time, to learn to articulate and express oneself in a language that is to the point, that honors the experience of the other, and is a vehicle whereby we can learn to live together better, both with our experience and in community. Oh, I like that last sentence. I hadn't read it out loud. Sometimes when I read things out loud, I pick up more about it. To learn to articulate and express oneself in a language that is to the point. I've had to work on that one quite a bit, actually. And in a language that honors the experience of others and is a vehicle whereby we can learn to live together better, both with our own experience and also in community. Well, that's a work of a lifetime, eh? So another word came to my mind as I was kind of musing, I'll use Linda's term on this topic, and that word is persona. That's a big word here. And I looked it up, a strategic mask of identity in public, the public image of one's personality, the social role one adopts. Now, here's a kind of a real discernment, a place of real discernment. Of course, we're different under different conditions and in different situations. That goes to the teaching of anatta. Of course, our sense of self shifts and changes. If you saw me around the house on a bad day, I would look really different from how I look as a Dharma teacher. So, under different conditions, I function differently. You function differently. We appear differently. So when does it become problematic? And I don't have the answer. I don't have the capital T on this one, but I'll conjecture that when we mask, hide our honest experience. Here's the example of me as a Dharma teacher. If I was teaching meditation and Dharma with little experience or knowledge, when I wasn't really meditating, and hadn't meditated very much in my life, but it seemed like a really cool thing to be a Dharma teacher, that would be a problem. I would be taking on the persona of a Dharma teacher, which is different than some days I think, oh, I can't find the Dharma. Where is that Dharma? Well, it's really not like that. Let's see, that was a little too dramatic. Some days it's harder to take on the position of Dharma teacher because of what else is going on in my life. So, I'm going to just end with this thought. Okay, so if we are in a truth revolution, it's messy. That's what revolutions often are. Maybe it's more like a collective wrestling match with what constitutes truth. So on that note,